Welcome in, gang. Coach, pumped to have you. So, Coach has already recorded a half hour of this episode, and it was recorded while the mid-afternoon games were just about to kick off, but none of Coach's recording apps will stitch it together. So, Coach is up late working on it. We might as well make this the intro since we're going to add more to it. You know, if Coach has to work longer on it, he might as well make it longer since he had more to talk about. So, first off, we got the Bears smoking the Brownies 31-3. Now, there's a lot to talk about with this game in particular. Coach didn't watch the game, but he heard some things, right? So 31-3. Well, 313 is Detroit's area code. Isn't that odd? And of course, the Bears coach is the Lions coordinator from before, Ben Johnson. And as far as this game in particular, there was some weirdness with Stefanski and Shador. Like, he apparently had the wrong wristband, so he was like making the wrong play calls, right? And he had to go to the bench, right? So that's got to be enough to get your coach fired. He can't even give the quarterback, right, the right plays. Like, what's going on there? That sounds shady. Also, huge news there, huge gossip in Cleveland. Coach has been forgetting to mention this one. The reporter who Deion Sanders famously had beef with, Tim McCarver, who he poured water on after the World Series because he criticized Deion for not being full-time with the Atlanta Falcons, even though obviously Deion was like doing both teams a huge solid being on their teams, right? Who could possibly try to make Sanders out as a villain in that case? Well, he was a huge Deion hater, and Deion poured water on him to celebrate. Well, what do you know? It's Kevin Stefanski's grandfather. Right, so that's the word on the street, at least. Now, since we're bringing up area codes, let's take a look at Cleveland's. Well, 216, what do you know? You throw a 0 in there, you get the 2016 NBA champions and the American League champions in baseball. What do you know? And so the Chiefs officially eliminated. Patrick Mahomes gets injured, so they have their excuse. It's set up perfectly for Kelsey to jump ship over to Cleveland. He was very disheartened even before this loss. He didn't have like any delusions that they were going to make the playoffs. Basically, you could just tell he thought they were cooked. Now, this is very interesting. They got some stat here. Following the Chiefs' elimination, the NFL playoffs will not include Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, or Patrick Mahomes for the first time since 1998. Are we sure about that? Now, with Goff making it through the Rams game, thank God. Coach still thinks he gets injured against the Rams, but next year makes way more sense, right? We don't want anything set up for the Lions to make a deep run. We'd be happy with them getting eliminated as soon as possible. Not even making the playoffs is okay with Coach, right? So, spoiler alert, they lost today. Gosh, why is my brain not working that good? Who'd they even play? The Rams, right? They played the Rams, our Super Bowl champs, who, of course, we think they're going to beat the Patriots. So, he survived the Rams game. So, they don't have an injury excuse. Their coach is thinking Gibbs goes down. A Gibbs injury makes a ton of sense for Coach, or St. Brown, either one of those. But I'm thinking Gibbs because he's like young enough, he can recover and they can play it all up, give you the modern medicine, all that sort of stuff. So Mahomes out for the season. We don't have Brady come back for next year. Well, Coach decided to take a look at old Peyton Manning, thinking, Coach has to be crazy. He's probably a few years older than Brady. He's like 52 or something, and I can't even try to sell you, even with a flip year or whatever. Guy that old, what do you know? Just old enough to set the record, and what's Brady good at? Breaking Peyton Manning's records. And why? I know it's absolute carnage around the NFL, the QB position, like Coach expected, although it doesn't seem set up for our guys just yet, but it would be a good lead into next year, right? To have a super young QB like Shador go against super old quarterback like Brady. What if Peyton Manning comes back to the Colts? Why did Daniel Jones go down from the Giants? That's where Eli's from. Phillip Rivers is the guy they choose of all people, guy that's been in the league for years. You're telling me absolutely nobody said it themselves. Why don't they just get Peyton if they're doing that? Right? No fans thinking that. Nice reunion after the Broncos stuff. Have him fall short, so it seems even more unlikely that Brady does it next year. Blah, blah, blah. Gosh, I had more. Oh, and speaking of the Broncos, if I had to pick another Super Bowl scenario, Packers, Broncos seems like one they want to run back at some point, but Micah Parsons just got a season-ending injury, seemingly. So it's certainly an excuse for the Packers, and we think they might go against Steelers next year with Rodgers. I'm thinking they do a fake out with the Broncos. No. Tom Brady came back with his 23rd season. I'm not sure if that's exactly when they won it in Tampa Bay, but I'm pretty sure it is. So I think Brady won it in his 23rd season. We could have Peyton Manning winning it in his 23rd season. LeBron James winning it in his 23rd season. Manning gave Brady a hard time out on retiring, so it'd be, Brady gets to, say the shoe's on the other foot. Kobe Parkinson, Bernie Kosar has Parkinson's. He went crazy. Of course, Kobe Bryant, he plays for the LA Rams. A different Kobe sacked Goff today. So there's a Daniel Thomas on the Lions that caught coach's attention because of the Thomas, of course. But he's from Montgomery, and we got David Montgomery on the team. Stafford spent 12 seasons with the Lions. It's 12 like Tom Brady, like Shador. Devontae Adams seemingly had an injury in the game today, but coach says it doesn't seem that serious, just like a little hamstring thing. Here's like some basic celebrity conspiracy stuff, like the dual characters thing. So coach says Ryan Gosling is Jared Goff. Along with some others. I'm pretty sure he also plays I'm sorry, I meant to say Ryan Reynolds. I'm pretty sure Ryan Reynolds is Jared Goff. He might also be Ryan Reynolds, but I'm more sure that he's Dane Cook. But what's interesting here, so if Ryan Reynolds is Jared Goff, and Ryan Gosling. Yeah, that's what it is. I think, right? Yeah, I think it's all of them. And the big clue coach thinks is that they call Goff's children his Goff Spring. So, like, Gosling's Golf Spring is just, like, way too, like, chef's kiss to not be, like, coach thinking he's onto something. Not that I ultimately care all that much. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think Gosling is who he is. They got Cam Ward's story, 0-star on Tubi. Maybe there's something big going on with Miami. The Ducks are in it. We could get our Ducks thing. Could be Miami, Ohio State. There's a lot of things that could be going on. You can't tell me they're sold on Phillip Rivers after an 18-16 loss. They need to figure it out soon. We love Ford's a huge sponsor right there. Of course, Tom Brady and Gronkowski doing the game for the Lions again. There's the Parsons thing. Oh, yeah. So Coach made a gaming channel, so you're not going to have to suffer through any more uploads with gaming content. Coach might, allude to an upload or something he's working on for the other channel, but Coach does have a proper gaming channel now. That's what he chose as his profile pic. It's from Chaos Engine / Soldiers of Fortune. Coach used to play this game on the Sega Genesis a bunch. It was on some other systems like the Amiga as well, and Coach used the background of Nidhogg, and we went with the name Half Bit Gamer. So Coach thinks that looks like a proper gaming channel. And this was just Coach. I think we covered that already. Hold on. Yeah, we covered that one already. There was a shooting. I meant to censor that, and I just blew it. with at Brown University. So coach said keep an eye out for Brown, of course, and Providence as well. But that's very interesting. Cowboys have a 1% chance to win their division. That would definitely be crazy. But here's Coach's channel. And his first upload is 11 games on PlayStation under $5 that go stupid hard for no reason. So it's all 11 games that are on sale under $5 right now. There's another game under $5 that's not on sale. It just happens to be under $5. What is the name? But I'm gonna blow it. Never mind. Coach was gonna give you a bonus, but I think I forgot it. Here's the Kobe Turner. So the other Kobe. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't seem like the Lions can make the playoffs, so we'd be pretty happy with that. Not make Coach sweat as hard. So Brad Holmes, Coach talks about Bradford later in this video, so I think that's another Brad. Also Brad like Brady, Braddy, right? So that's what. Welcome in, gang. Coach, super pumped to have you. There's a ton Coach wants to talk about, but it's one of those where it's like it's a ton of little things, right? So Coach has to really get in the zone and try to remember every little bit. But we're going to start with Joe Burrow saying he wants to leave Cincinnati. Of course, we think he's getting his career ended the last week of the season, okay? And Coach is actually going to start with what he was... Oh, my God. Okay, so Coach was actually going to save this for the end because in case any new viewers were popping in, Coach didn't want to make it seem like he's just a hater or whatever, but he was going to go on a rant about National Sports Entertainment because Coach hasn't roasted them really since the last Super Bowl. And Coach just wants to talk about his issue with like the other YouTube pickers in general. Now, Coach wants to say, it's very possible that there's some very good ones out there that Coach just isn't aware of, but Coach is still pretty confident that he's by far and away the best. Like when you really look at what Coach is bringing to the table, like it's just almost impossible to argue with. I can't imagine someone's bringing more, but that doesn't mean there's not channels out there that aren't generally like doing solid work all the time and could help us and we could help them, right? Like Coach doesn't think he's the end all be all. He does think he's the best, but Coach believes in teams, right? He really wishes we had more players that are as good as our best players, and we would be absolutely killing it. Coach's problem or issue, he believes, is that we just don't have enough numbers. Right, we need more people that are willing to put into the work, like Trevor and Kadar, etc., and more newcomers like Deke that come in and just hit the comment section hard and frequently. But Coach wants to rant about National Sports Entertainment and all the pickers he knows of in general. Coach's issue isn't that there is competition. Competition breeds excellence. Coach expects there to be very good pickers. So Coach is like generally like an optimist and gives people the benefit of the doubt. So even though he can't stand these channels, after so long, a week or a couple weeks or whatever, of not hearing anything of them, Coach gets in his mind like, I'll bet I was just too hard on them. They can't possibly be as bad as Coach remembers. And every freaking time he watches either Gematria Effect Sports or National Sports Entertainment, which just the branding alone is awful. That they're boring as hell, right? Coach within like a couple minutes is just infuriated, not because of their picks, but because of their lack of personality, how they never seemingly get to anything. Like Zach will just stall until the very end and then never give you anything. National Sports Entertainment dips it in, but it's just like there's just one slide the whole time. Right, so you like can't differentiate between like what you've seen, and he's so dry, so monotone, no personality, that it all just blends together. Like I literally end up having to watch the video like 4 times to even figure out what his freaking picks were, because it's not like he has any excitement about it whatsoever. It sounds the exact same as the team he likes the best. It sounds the same as the team he hates the most. Like it's just like Coach thinks that they're paid opposition, and that they're designed to put you to sleep. They're supposed to sell you that they're like the bottom of the rabbit hole, so you're not going to anybody doing any real work. They're begging you for money, which is typical shill shit, and their picks are just so uninspired and soulless that coach just can't help but believe there's something off. Now, if he's wrong about any of them, it is National Sports Entertainment, but that is his issue with the channel, is that it's incredibly boring, gives you almost nothing to look at. And like, he'll literally spend an hour making his picks, and his commenters are like, oh, it's okay, take as long as you need or whatever. If coach spends an hour, we've gone to hell and back. We've talked about anything and everything, probably like 10 different sports, right? Like, coach isn't going to just drag, right? Even doing this little segment, coach was questionable about, but he never really spends time talking about the competition or lack thereof, so it seems justified, right? So basically, they're just so boring. What coach was getting to, of course, we smoked him. He made the Mahomes pick last year and made the god-awful, like, uninspired rap, right? It's just the most milquetoast shit you would expect, right, from someone with no personality. And it's just like the way he talks and stuff, it just rubs me as the type of person, like, I would know instantly in real life I don't fuck with you, and it's because I know you're constantly doing the most. Whatever you can fucking get away with, you're fucking pulling it with whatever type of plausible deniability with your absolute lack of personality. Like, it's like a shield in a way. Like, if you like have no personality, people can't like really criticize you, right? They don't even really know who you really are and what you're really about. So you can just like play aloof or dim-witted or whatever when it's convenient, right? So coach just thinks he has very grating tone, and he's probably a smarmy prick in real life, and that's another reason coach doesn't fuck with him. The reason coach is going so hard is because he picked the fucking Bengals to win the Super Bowl, or at least make the Super Bowl. I'm not sure which way, but coach's team, of course, isn't making the Super Bowl either. The team he originally picked, the Brownies, who are in the same division. But think of the difference, like, Browns versus Lions, I don't have to spend a whole bunch of time telling you why that's a fucking epic matchup, right? What does Bengals Niners do for you, right? Like, pretty much absolutely nothing, right? Oh, the Niners have a hometown Super Bowl. Like, you're not sick of seeing them, and you didn't just see the Bengals get busted up a few years ago. Burrow is injured, bro. How the fuck is he gonna fucking win a Super Bowl? They don't have any elite, like, anything. Their running game's been whack all year. Their receiver's a total diva, and their defense is Swiss cheese, right? So, like, at least my Brownies, they had elite defense. Most people would argue the very best player in the league, not even just best defense player in the league. Most people will give coach now. It wasn't when he was first saying it, but now they'll grant him that he's the best player in the league, and they're going to talk about how he got robbed of league MVP this year, so they have to give it to him next year. That's coach's opinion, right? And coach is giving you the team that never, ever, ever gets any type of breaks at quarterback. They get the steal of the fucking draft. Rookie comes in, matches numbers only Tom Brady has done, blah, blah, blah. And it's the most Googled player. It's the guy they had all over Amazon for years, son of the only guy that's won a World Series and a Super Bowl. Like, I shouldn't have to, like, it should be a lot easier to sell you Shador versus a busted up Burrow. Like, what the hell kind of garbage pick is that, right? And you, like, my team lost by 1 point, essentially, because instead of kicking the extra points, they take the ball out of Shador's hand, give it to the running back on some wild card crap. Like, of course it was the coach we need to get fired that blew it. It wasn't the player's fault. He picked a guy to lead them to the Super Bowl that lost 24-0. They didn't even get a fucking field goal, dude, because this piece of shit threw a pick six at like the 7-yard line. That's who you picked to win the Super Bowl? How are you going to bounce back and give me a B script when this is how you went out? You know what I'm saying? Like, coach can at least give you like reasons, like what could have possibly been the hook that got you sold on Niners Bengals. So coach isn't going to dwell anymore on that, but coach just wishes when he like fucked up, he wishes that he could immediately be like, oh, so-and-so's right then. Right? It's always like, oh, shit, now we got to figure it out because we know nobody else is picking up the slack. Right? They're going to pick the fucking loser and ride him the whole way into the ground until it blows up in their face. Right? So that was coach's National Sports Entertainment rant. We're moving on. It's just hilarious that that's how they went out. And let's see. So Burrow wanted to leave. We think he's going to get injured the last week of the season. Right? Career-ending injury. So they're like kind of, this is their soft soft disclosure to Bengals fans, like, hey, don't get too attached. I know he's your guy, but like, is might not last forever. And then they're gonna rip the rug out, right? So, Coach isn't so sold on his Lakers Cavs pick after all, and the reason is the Cavs. I'm thinking Lakers Sixers is where it's at. The Sixers court is fucking smoking hot. They look identical to back in 01 when they made the finals as far as like the swag, right? And they never brought that aesthetic back after that season, right? So the court's right, which is by far their best court. The jerseys are right, which are by far their most beloved jerseys. So everything's right there. There's a 6-7 meme, like that's like word of the year or whatever. Like flip it around, 76ers, right? The Eagles won the Super Bowl 76 years after they won the 48 championship just a second ago, right? So we know Philly's not cursed. And like, of course, LeBron could be good for it, 23rd season, etc. Like I don't have to change anything with them. We were suspicious that LA was going to make a massive trade. We were thinking Steph Curry. They end up going even bigger with Luka Doncic. What do you know? He's from Dallas. Philly can't stand Dallas. I was begging for them to take Luka. It was like they did everything to make Sixers fans want Luka. Like, it's hard to explain unless you're a Sixers fan, but like they had Coach watching European basketball for like 2 and 3 years because all they kept doing was stashing guys like Dario Saric, or we're supposed to get Hezonja or whatever. Like, Luka felt like the no-brainer pick that the Sixers would finally learn their lesson on, especially after passing on Dirk Nowitzki back in the day. He goes to the same team Dirk Nowitzki had. We end up with Ben Simmons, who, what do you know? What are the 2 player comparisons they give you on Ben Simmons? LeBron James, Laker, and Magic Johnson, lifetime Laker. Okay? So Coach thinks that's very, very sketchy. Why the hell did we get the bust with Ben Simmons? He just now got flamed out of the league entirely. He's got the exact personality for some reality show shit. Like, he doesn't actually need basketball. He's one of those, like, as soon as girls see him, they go, ooh, he's cute, blah, 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 right? Like, so he doesn't need to be sold to hoop heads, right? He can get sold to the Real Housewives crowd or the Kardashians crowd, right? So, and also LeBron supposed to be the next Kobe. Kobe beat the Sixers. Prove LeBron's not Kobe by maybe having the Sixers beat LeBron. Embiid finally gets over. LeBron, every time he was like up for whatever, it's like, oh, he could come to the Sixers, he could save us, blah, blah. But I knew, then it's like, I have a really good feel for the Sixers. That's my team, like, straight up. You have no idea, right? And Coach nailed his Eagles pick back in the day when he said that we're not winning a Super Bowl till we get it back on the Patriots. So 13 years later, that motherfucker's still on the team. It's got to be Tom Brady's Patriots specifically, and that happens, right? This feels exactly the same, to where every time they'd rumor, I'd be like, ooh, why would we want LeBron? He would just ruin the process. Like, LeBron is anti-process. LeBron's the cash in, win now shit the Lakers always do, right? You just get it, easy come, easy go, right? Whereas the Sixers, it's like you got to grind it out and develop and go through injury and hardship, blah, 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 blah. Embiid has so much more to gain from a championship than LeBron. And getting Embiid over on his first, it's hard to see a guy other than a LeBron paired with like a Luka that could really get him like over in time to really have the, okay, who's the best? Is it Jokic? Is it Embiid? Maybe I'm thinking do some crazy shit with Sixers beat the Lakers. Next year, you get the Clippers beating the Sixers. Like, just some ridiculous shit, just because they have Kawhi. However, I'm not entirely sold on that, because there might be some ridiculous curse on the Clippers because they weren't supposed to be in LA, but it still seems like the right place, right time. Like, you're not in San Diego. It is weird that the Clippers and the Chargers, both San Diego to LA transplants, right? win in the same year when they finally get over. So it's hard to think too hard on the Clippers, especially when you got massive chokers like Harden, blah, blah, blah. It could be the Sixers back to back, or it could be Lakers beating Sixers. Sixers bounce back, beat the Clippers next year. That probably makes more sense. Okay, give LeBron the big send-off. Then Embiid, they're not going to expect him to beat the Clippers with Kawhi, having already done it to him, right? So that's possible. There's Coach hates the NBA because there's always a billion different storylines. They could sell you, right? But it's also very interesting, right? So Ben Simmons, number 1 overall pick of the Sixers, next Magic Johnson. Well, Sixers' other number 1 overall pick, they trade the pick that becomes Jason Tatum to the Celtics to take Markelle Fultz, ends up on the Magic. Also, same thing I was telling you with Dario Saric, right, over Mario. We took Dario instead of Mario. Mario goes to the Magic. There's some weirdness there. So not entirely sure. So, Burrow, not only did they break it to the Bengals that, he may be leaving early, but, me and my buddy were talking about, my buddy basically just started going off Burrow. Isn't Burrow, the coolest? Just as a person, he just likes his personality. And I was like, he bought a Batmobile. It's that's the coolest shit ever, man. And I was just like, Burrow is probably just slaying it harder than any QB. He's absolutely living his life, 100%. He's not living and dying off the losses. Yeah, he does the mopey, whatever, but it's mostly just that he wants to have fun and he's not having fun. So Coach thinks this injury is the perfect excuse to get him in the booth, get him having a great time. He doesn't have to take hits anymore. He still gets to be around all his buddies. It makes too much sense, right? Lakers Sixers. So when they beat the Sixers this year, they are 17-6. So you got your 7 and your 6 there. LeBron had some epic, basically people have been hating on LeBron the whole year. And then he hit some game winner here or something. Don't forget they got Paul George there as well. So that's a big face. Maxi's a lot like Iverson, so that could be some part of the ritual, with Iverson versus Lakers. It's really honestly hard for Coach to read. But Coach thinks it's smarter that when we know that there's 500 plus combinations, to focus in on the ones that we like the best, because it's never outside of our top 5. You know what I mean? We didn't love Eagles over Chiefs last year, but it was our C script. If we would have just put them on, we got to start hedging a bit better and smarter instead of just hedging with the teams we love versus oh, what if this happens or what if this happens? You know what I mean? In the other sports, we got to take multiple scenarios in each one. So Coach can't give you anything better than Pat's Rams. But as far as pairing it with the NBA, Coach is definitely taking Lakers, Sixers, Lakers, Cavs. I don't like that one quite as much, but Nuggets, Sixers, Clippers, Sixers. We're gonna run them all. We're just not gonna put a ton of money into it. That was stupid. I need to get into that. This was interesting. This frat boy type dude or whatever called Busta Rhymes Tracy Morgan. It's very obvious that Busta Rhymes is Tracy Morgan. He's also George Buster Rhymes, who is his namesake. Trevor George Smith is Buster Rhymes. George Buster Rhymes is the receiver, right? So obviously this is one the same. College Oklahoma, that raises red flags for us. Committed under Barry Switzer. Now, Coach has, oh my gosh, we're about to go crazy. Okay, Elvis Peacock. So Elvis Peacock, Oklahoma guy, plays for the Rams. Obviously Elvis, big Cleveland Browns fan. LA Rams were the Cleveland Rams. Peacock has exclusive rights to wild card football games. Isn't it interesting? Elvis Presley is a giant fan of the Browns, whose mascot is Brownie the Elf, right? Elvis, Elf, right? So there you go. There's your little joke. Oh, whoops, sorry. Stupid. So Buster Rhymes and the Viking star. Okay, Coach thinks that George H.W. Bush is probably quitting. And the giveaway is the chin, right? It's he's eating his own teeth and the sunken eyes in the forehead. Coach just thinks he nailed that Quentin is playing George H.W. TJ Watt, very interesting. Coach nailed this. Coach nailed this. When he saw he was undergoing medical evaluation of his lung, I was like, oh, he did some dumb medical shit. And he's got a collapsed lung. Well, he does end up having collapsed lung. So now they're giving the Steelers another excuse, right on top of Rodgers' injury. Like, there's no way it's the Steelers, right? So, Hurts winless in last 5 games when he throws like 30-plus passes. I'm not going to lie, Coach is still very, very upset over the Lions and the Browns thing. And, it makes sense that if they're giving Tom Brady the oldest record to just say 49 years old, that is the age gap of Hudson and Belichick after all, right? And we know 49 is the Browns number, blah, blah, blah. So instead of them just being like, well, he was technically an older 48, right? Just give him the straight up 49. But it certainly makes the here and now with the playoffs like so much squirrelier. Like, I definitely see McKee losing to Brady, but it's like there's no way he's coming back this year. If everything else didn't fall into place, he's done for another offseason. We're gonna have some big storyline that leads to his comeback, right? With a bunch of hype, is Coach's opinion. And obviously the Rams getting revenge on the Eagles makes a ton of sense. Speaking of which, let's follow the Rams-Eagles thing. Coach made a little post. Okay. Coach said, only thing we care about is golf, hopefully getting injured versus the Rams. So that game's about to start like any minute or just kicked off. Let's see. Dickerson was best player in Rams history. Okay, Eric Dickerson. Saquon was going after his record last year. He had Dickerson on the line blocking for him. Rams and Eagles made Super Bowl right after each other just a couple years ago with the Rams versus Bengals and the Eagles versus Chiefs the first time. And then, at the turn of the century, the Eagles and Rams played the Patriots in fairly close proximity. It was just a few years removed. Vermeil coached the Rams after taking Philly to their Super Bowl loss to the Raiders. And the Rams would have won the Super Bowl last year if not for the Eagles. It's not hard for them or for Coach to make that argument at all, right? Like, they just go on to beat the Redskins. And then Chiefs played so uninspired. Why wouldn't the Rams beat the Chiefs? Well, what do you know? Rams, Redskins, how often did Coach go off about the Ramskins last year, right? They're a weird history. So, not exactly sure, how the Redskins is going to tie into this label. We do have them winning a Super Bowl, so it makes sense that would at least be a bit of weirdness sitting there, that we can think through a bit more. And, of course, we know about, like, all the injury stuff with Alex Smith, Heisman. We got Burrow getting injured. There's definitely a lot to digest. Dickerson had his swag stolen by Deion Sanders, stole his mouthpiece, the full mouth guard. Only Dickerson wore that before Deion. And Deion straight up told Dickerson. So Coach read a whole Dickerson book. It was called Watch My Smoke. So Coach read Watch My Smoke by Eric Dickerson. And let's rip up to that real quick. Coach made some notes. So Dickerson did play for SMU, which is a big reason we had SMU. What do you know? He wanted to go to Oklahoma because he loved Barry Switzer's swagger and was obsessed with Billy Sims, okay? And Dickerson never got over not going to Oklahoma. He only went to SMU because it was closer and his mom was just a take-no-shit type of woman. And he wasn't ever about to go to Texas like his stepdad wanted. So I wouldn't say resented, but he always longed for Oklahoma, and he ultimately has to think he made the right decision because she nailed the part about his legacy being more cemented with SMU, etc. Right? You get lost in the faces of the crowd with Oklahoma. You're just another one in a long line, right? So she was right about that. But as far as like what he would have actually enjoyed doing, he certainly would have had more fun at Oklahoma, and he still roots for them when they play. So Oklahoma winning and the Rams winning in the same year, it could be a big Dickerson ritual right after the big rushing thing. This is the biggest one right here that has Coach thinking there ain't no way this is a coincidence, dude. So we need to talk about the timeline of why Coach believes we can shift it all one more year, but not a minute after. Dead serious. Like, there's just no way it could possibly work. And it's because we have literally like 3 Super Bowls hinging on this. Okay, and we're talking up to 125 years old. So Coach had to cut the video because he was just kept spitting out the wrong numbers and it was driving him crazy. He kept having to correct himself, and he's not going to confuse you like that. So basically, I'll get to the meat of it first. Our big Lions number is 2150 because that's the most points in franchise history, and that's what lined up perfectly with every other Super Bowl. Right, so it could be 75 years from the 75 to 76 season, which is 50 years from the 26 season. Okay, so you could still get the Bobby Lane curse in there, blah, blah, blah. And it'd still be 75 years. Well, I already did that, right? So, and 125 years from the 2026 season, blah, blah, blah. Right, so we love 2150 for the Lions. What do you know? Dickerson's rushing record is 2105. Just a flip of 50 to 05. So it's very odd. Like, how are they not winning it back to back? You know, that just blew Coach's mind. Right, so Dickerson was like the poster boy for buying players. Of course, we know like the NIL deals, all that sort of stuff. He also committed to A&M. A&M's in the playoffs. Let's see. He wanted to play for the Niners. He doesn't like Bob Knight. It's interesting. Bob Knight died. I brought up the Niners, of course, because that's where the Super Bowl is being hosted. The owner left tickets for Elvis. Right? Isn't that interesting? But Coach thought this part was really weird. Okay, so Dickerson's traded to the Colts. And he didn't want to get traded to the Colts. He just wanted the Rams to pay him what he was owed. And they were just beyond greedy. Right, they just were not doing right by him whatsoever. So it just became irreconcilable, whatever you want to say, right? And he had to move on. So their reaction was to trade him to the Colts. This was before free agency, all that sort of stuff. So he ends up in Indianapolis, and he absolutely hated it there. And he hated Irsay. What do you know? Irsay just died. And what do you know? The other great running back that ends up taking them to Super Bowls, blah, 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 Marshall Faulk, who beats Kevin Faulk's Patriots. Right, he also only played for the Rams and the Colts, so that's very odd. Let's see, let's get back on track here. Oh, sorry, Coach skipped ahead. So we're going with right here. So it's an interesting, A.J. Brown, the Eagles' big receiver, they win a Super Bowl with, like Alshon Jeffrey, A.J. Thought that was very interesting. Born in Matthews, or my coach of Jordan Matthews, who they traded, and Casey Matthews. Andy Reid, his costly mistake that gets him fired pretty much is overdrafting Casey Matthews in the 5th round and starting him at middle linebacker, right? Oregon Duck, where Chip Kelly comes over for the Ducks, all that sort of stuff. We don't need any of that stuff. Let's just keep my mind straight. Let's see. There's the collapsed lung. So Belichick says the best quarterback he ever saw was Burt Brown. What do you know, right? So Burt Brown. Burt Jones. Who the hell is Burt Brown? I don't know. Coach was having trouble figuring out who this Burt Brown is, this number 12 on the Browns. But Burt Jones is who Belichick thought was the best quarterback. He played for the Rams. And the Colts, another Ram and Colt, what's going on there, right? Also makes Coach think of Johnny Unitas. That's a Browns and Colts. That's still a Cleveland. Of course, the Browns lose their franchise to Baltimore. Definitely seems like a little too much weirdness there. Let's see. Yeah, so Belichick said he was the best pure passer he ever saw. Belichick was involved in some sort of miracle on 33rd Street, and also on the bad end of the Miami Miracle. So we need to look more into that. Taylor threatened to off Eric Dickerson, just trash talking on the field, but Dickerson was deathly afraid of Lawrence Taylor. So Coach thinks that's interesting. And of course, we think there's big Lawrence Taylor ritual coming up. And then what do you know? They get into the Hall of Fame at the same time. At the same time, Ozzie Newsome got in. Ozzy Osbourne just died. Josh Gordon tied Ozzie Newsome's records. There's your 2105, and it was in 1984. We know that's a huge. Sorry, I love fucking ice cream. Night Train Lane is still good for us, right? We had Night Train Lane on the board because of the Lions. What do you know? He's also an LA Ram. So everything Coach said about Night Train Lane, you know, he loves the name Lane for right now, still applies. So that could be some part in breaking the curse. Of course, Frank Trader Lane and Bobby Lane, blah, blah, blah. Coach, so this is interesting. So Dr. Jerry Buss, so Dr. J, right? Dr. J of the Lakers, or same team, went head-to-head in the finals with Dr. J's team. The Sixers will probably also get Nets versus Lakers finals at some point. Coach thinks with the Bills, this is random, but Coach thinks with the Bills, they're going to put the Vikings over, they're going to lose to the Eagles, and then they're going to get revenge on the Cowboys. So the Bills have 2 more Super Bowls to lose, so 6 total, and then they finally beat the Cowboys. Is what makes sense to Coach. So yeah, this Shador getting national TV slot today. There's the book Coach listened to. Saquon Barkley, 26, upside down 29, like Dickerson's number. James Madison Dukes, they're in the college football playoffs. They're going to be going against Oregon. And, you know, Coach thinking James, that's like LeBron James, you know, Cavalier, Wahoo, the Virginia connection. Coach just thinking maybe we should look a little bit at James Madison. And Coach saw, okay, so they got a Jacoby Campbell. So Kobe and Campbell, that's a 2 for Alston. That's kind of like Alshon. Jackson Snyder, that's definitely a fake name. Cam McNair, that's interesting when Cam Ward is quarterback for Steve McNair's team, right? Har. Barksdale, that's a hit. There's more. There's a Jordan, there's an Aiden. You know, there's a Bush. The top ones didn't really do anything for Coach here. James Madison, what was it I liked about? Oh, yeah. So his vice president was George Clinton. That made Coach think like George Clinton in the P-Funk All-Star, or the Parliament Funkadelic, right? So Parliament and George Clinton's the vice president. That definitely seems like some sort of joke. Here's just some sales Coaches picking up for the PlayStation if you want to check out any of these games. Deadly Days, zombie survival game, 90% off, $2. Z-Warp's a vertical shooter for $2. Hillbilly Doomsday is side-scrolling shooter for a couple bucks. Neodori Forever, a couple bucks for like a retro racer. Witch Rise, Coach is paying full price for that. It seems like Project Warlock for kids, so that'll be good for when the kid comes and visits. Wizard and the Slug, it's marked down to $2. It seems like a very interesting platformer. Fusion Paradox is a very odd twin stick shooter for $2.50, and Super XYX, insane looking vertical shooter for $5, and Gunlord X marked down to $4. That's the one I'm the least sure about, just because I don't know if it quite fits my taste, but it does seem like the best version of like Contra Hardcore. So if that's your thing, I'd take a look. Coach was looking at Alex Sonny Six Killer. So old Six Killer here, another Oklahoma guy, played for the Philadelphia Bill and the Hawaiians. Coach thinks that's a weird one. Philly just won the Super Bowl, and we got a couple Hawaiian lefty quarterbacks in the league. Not too much to add to that, but Six Killer was in The Longest Yard with Burt Reynolds back in the day. I guess, is that all Coach has for you right now? I think it is. So that was as bad of a pick as any football fan will ever see. So that's how Joe Burrow ended his last season's playoff eligibility, potentially. And, they can criticize the Bengals ownership, etc., coaching for still having Burrow in there when the season's completely lost. And